October 27th, 2020. The Chattahoochee River thunders through the massive concrete walls of Lake Oliver Dam in Columbus, Georgia. For 31-year-old commercial diver Alex Reed Paxton, the job that morning seemed routine. Inspect the heavy chain on one of the dam's control gates for any signs of damage. Inside the dam, water flows through penstocks, huge steel pipes that carry it toward the turbines to generate electricity. To most people, they're just part of the infrastructure. But to divers, they're among the deadliest places you can be. The danger is called delta P, differential pressure. Picture water being forced through a small opening, creating a suction force so strong it can pin a diver against a wall or drag them into the opening in an instant. That's why there's lockout, cha-cha, tagout, the diver's shield. Every valve, turbine, and energy source is supposed to be shut, locked, checked, documented, and double verified before anyone gets wet. On that day, Alex's team was told it was safe, but a single 10-inch pipe leading to the turbines had been left open. Alex descended, light from his helmet torch slicing through the darkness, illuminating the massive chain links glistening underwater. He moved methodically, running his gloved hands along the metal, unaware that death was waiting just a few feet away. Then, the unseen force hit. With a sudden, violent jerk, his left arm was yanked deep into the black mouth of the pipe. The suction, around 850 pounds of force, whipped his body sideways, slamming his chest against the wall. His regulator bubbles erupted in a frantic rush toward the surface as his legs kicked wildly, boots scraping against steel. His chest was pinned so tightly he couldn't expand his lungs, no matter how desperately he tried. Above, his team saw him freeze. "Something's wrong," a voice crackled over comms. Divers rushed through the concrete maze, light sweeping over walls of valves. It took 30 minutes to find the open pipe, and another 30 to shut the flow. The investigation revealed the safety checklist from that morning didn't even mention the valve that killed him. One missing line of ink, and a diver's life ended in silence beneath the water. 2:30 p.m., February 25th, 2022. Off Pointe-à-Pierre, Trinidad, 5 commercial divers, Kazim Ali Jr., Yusuf Henry, Faisal Kurban, Rishi Nagasar, and Christopher Boudram were working between berth 6 and berth 5 in an oil facility pipeline. 15 feet underwater, they entered an 8-by-8-foot dry habitat. A metal chamber pumped with air to push water out. To remove a plug from the pipeline, the pipe itself stretched 1,200 feet and was only 30 inches wide. To picture it, that's longer than 3 football fields but barely wider than a kitchen doorway, and completely pitch black inside. And it wasn't straight. Multiple bends twisted the tunnel, making it hard to tell which way led out. Just like in the first story, Delta P struck again, and it hit hard. Really hard. A violent vacuum yanked all 5 men into the narrow, oily tube in less than a second. Tanks and helmets slammed against steel, helmet lights whipped in the darkness, and water roared around them until the current eased. They eventually stopped in a cramped section with a small air pocket overhead. One diver was too injured to move. The others linked together and tried to pull themselves through the pipe to escape. But the water became too deep, forcing them to stop. They shouted, prayed, and tried to comfort each other as they fought to stay calm. Later, a GoPro camera recovered from one of the deceased captured these moments.
Yeah. Where you at? I don't know. I tried to come up. Tried to come up.
The men alive, talking, praying, and waiting. Christopher decided to go for help. Luckily, he found an extra air tank that had also been sucked into the pipe, giving him a chance to survive the long crawl ahead. For 3 hours, he dragged himself through bends and sludge, scraping elbows and knees in total darkness, until a faint light appeared. When he finally emerged into daylight, the first breath of fresh air was almost as painful as it was relieving. He tried to go back in for his friends, but the company managing the site, Pariah, refused to let him, fearing more casualties. No rescue was launched. Days later, the pipeline was flushed, and the bodies of the other 4 men emerged, proving they had been alive for many hours after the accident. Rest in peace to Kazim Ali Jr., Yusuf Henry, Faisal Kurban, and Rishi Nagasar. April 28, 2000. Off Dahab, Egypt, the surface water glows turquoise. Beneath it lies the Blue Hole, a 394-foot deep sinkhole known as the Divers Cemetery. Over the years, between 130 and 200 divers have died here. The Blue Hole has a shallow saddle at about 20 feet and, much deeper, the Arch, an 85-foot-long tunnel at 184 feet that leads to the open Red Sea. From there, the exit is roughly 820 feet from shore, with strong currents waiting outside. Many divers misjudge the distance or run out of air before making it through. 22-year-old Russian-Israeli diving instructor Yuri Lipski planned to reach the bottom at 377 feet. He went alone, with just one tank of regular compressed air, ignoring advice from world-class diver Tariq Omar, who told him not to attempt it. The descent started smoothly, sunlight fading as he passed coral walls and entered the deep blue. At 262 feet, nitrogen narcosis began to take hold. Yuri's confusion quickly tipped into panic. His eyes darted inside his mask, scanning the endless blue for escape. Shaky hands clawed at his gear, bursts of bubbles exploding from his regulator. Reaching the bottom, Yuri looked disoriented. He tried inflating his buoyancy vest, fumbled with his regulator, and kicked weakly. Clouds of silt swirled, turning the view into a gray haze. At this depth, oxygen toxicity may also have added to his confusion, possibly causing tunnel vision or worse. Hours later, Tariq Omar descended to recover his body. Yuri's helmet camera, which had filmed everything, was still running. Omar later said, "I regret that his mother will have this forever. If I had known the footage existed, I'd have flooded it." Today, a memorial plaque sits by the Blue Hole. Yuri's final dive is now used worldwide to warn divers about the risks of deep solo dives, ignoring expert advice and chasing dangerous records. By day, Belgium's Taille Reservoir looks peaceful. Sailboats drift by, divers explore, families stroll along the shore. But beneath the calm surface is a tunnel big enough to swallow a car, and a current that can kill in seconds. This is La Platte Taille, the largest lake in Belgium, covering 3.74 square kilometers, about the size of 520 football fields. It's an artificial reservoir held back by a massive dam, complete with a pump station that tourists can actually visit. When the lake is at full capacity, the water at the dam's base can reach 43 meters, 141 feet, deep. Rewind to January 4th, 2024. Two experienced divers, Christopher Goddard and Frederic Pochet, arrived for a night dive. Divers are warned to stay well away from the dam's danger zone, at least 250 to 300 meters, around 820 to 984 feet, from the intakes, marked by buoys or signs. Cross that line, and you risk being caught when the turbines start without warning. That night, the intake tunnels had no protective grids, and even when grids are used, they're only meant to block large debris, not people. Keeping them in place is costly, so they're not always there. Christopher and Frederick entered the water with closed-circuit rebreathers for long dives and underwater scooters for speed. Their setup suggested they might explore close to the exclusion line. Around 5 p.m., they descended to about 130 to 148 feet, 40 to 45 meters, near the intake area. At first, the water was calm, then came a faint vibration in their jaws, a sign the turbines may have been starting up. Reports suggest 3 of them powered on. The hum grew into a deep thrum, and then the current hit, slow at first, then pulling with unstoppable force. Once they were caught in the tunnel, there was no way out. Later that evening, when Frederick's son couldn't reach him, he drove to the reservoir. His father's car was still there, doors locked, gloves inside. He knew something was wrong. The Belgian Civil Protection responded immediately, deploying a 10-person dive team with sonar to search the area. Rescuers found damaged dive gear, but poor weather forced them to stop. The next morning, helicopters with thermal cameras joined the effort. After about 46 hours, human remains were recovered in stages and later confirmed as Christopher and Frederick. What happened? Both men were sucked deep into the tunnel, where the spinning turbine blades tore through them in an instant. The force of the rushing water smashed their bodies apart, leaving nothing that could survive such power. 4 stories, 1 lesson. Water always wins. Whether it's a dam, a cave, or the ocean, if it wants you, you're going. It doesn't care how experienced you are, how good your gear is, or how calm it looks on the surface. Respect it, stay alive. And if you liked hearing about these terrifying ways not to die, hit subscribe. It's free, unlike the rescue bill if you ignore warning signs.